Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Vegan Tour Guide Podcast with your host, Mike Knight, where we'll bring you great information about a vegan plant-based diet. It doesn't matter if you've been vegan for years, part-time vegan, or just gathering more information. This podcast is for you. Thanks again for joining, and let's get today's tour started.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Vegan Tour Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Knight, and I hope you're having a phenomenal day. And you know what else? I hope you have had a phenomenal 2017, because now we're wrapping it up. This is the last show we're going to be doing here for 2017. So let me start out by saying thank you. Thank you to all you listeners that have just helped this show grow and just, allowed and provided, this space, this platform, if you will, for us to do what we love doing. And that is just me coming on here, putting this show together and just bringing you knowledge and information about what is going on in the plant-based vegan world and just all the great growth that we're seeing. And that is by, awareness raising on all kinds of ways. We're talking about, the awareness for the environment, the awareness for animals, and the awareness for health aspect. Especially, we're talking about the growth we're seeing in the market. I mean, sales of plant-based food in the U.S. went up over 8% this year. I mean, it's growing in leaps and bounds. You got vegan cheese that is, Mercy already getting ready to be what they're going to think is a $4 billion plus industry, here by 2024. And then there's the quoting numbers such as over a 7% annual, compounded growth rate from now until 2024, going up to that $4 billion. I mean, it just keeps growing in leaps and bounds, and we're talking about, of course, you've seen and heard and read. We've even talked about on the show, especially all, the quote, meat substitute products. We've got, Hampton Creek with the eggs, that they've now created with the mung beans. That is unbelievable, that product they got. And then, of course, Ocean Hugger Foods coming out, with the sushi, the plant-based tomato sushi. That has got everyone blown away. And then, of course, we got the Beyond Meat Burger. I mean, all these things that are just setting the foundation in the marketplace is just absolutely phenomenal. And so that's why, with all these changes that we see coming, I am so glad on this show, the last show of the year, that Alison from the Good Foods Insitute was kind enough to stop by and talk to us about, of course, her journey, her path, but also all the great things that the Good Foods Institute is doing. Now, let me give you just a little bit of background so she's going to talk about it, but to give you a little bit of background on Good Foods Institute, I'm going to read you literally kind of right off their site a little bit of stuff here for you so you understand where they're coming from, the Good Foods Institute. It says, we work with scientists, investors, and entrepreneurs to make groundbreaking food a reality. We focus on clean meat and plant-based alternatives to animal products, foods that are more delicious, safer to eat, and better for the planet than their outdated counterparts. And they do so much more. And Alison and I will get into that as she explains that during her interview, because you'll really get to see the integral roles that they play, to help out these companies. A lot of the companies, that are out there right now in the plant-based vegan world, they've got ideas, they've got, products. And a lot of times, they're really almost like bootstrapping these companies, if you will, trying to get them going, and they need direction. They kind of need, if you will, a driver for their vehicle. And that, is a big area where Good Foods Institute comes into play. And so I'm very happy that Alison stops by. She gives a great personal story herself, and then you're going to hear what, Good Foods Institute does and all the great things they're doing. And so you see that. And you see the growth. I mean, to me, this is so exciting to just, see, even just over the last year, the great strides that have been made. Thank you so much again for a great 2017. So now, sit back and get ready to hear about Alison's journey and all the great things that the Good Foods Institute is doing in the plant-based vegan space.
All right, Alison, welcome to the Vegan Tour Guide.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and getting ready to talk about the Good Food Institute and all the many, many, many things that y'all have going on.
Yeah, we're pretty busy, I will say. There's an endless amount of work to be done in this space, but it's all very exciting.
Well, I know. I mean, I want to get into that. I mean, it's in a nutshell, you guys have basically set out to, if you will, the small task of change the world and the way the world eats.
Yeah, it's a little task.
And look, if you're going to set goals in life, let's just set them big. But tell me I want to know a little bit about you, starting with you, and kind of, I guess, what led you to this path, because obviously, I know when I talk to people that are involved with this, there's always a lot of, passion and something within them that ties them in. So I'm curious just to begin with, what, your path to getting here, because I know you've got a very impressive, corporate world background before coming over here with the skill set that you bring. So I'd love to hear, how all this developed for you.
Absolutely. How much time do you have? So, when I was in college, I started getting involved with some animal rights groups and, watched all the movies and read all the books. And yet I wasn't really ready to make the leap yet, to be a vegetarian or vegan. But when I graduated from college and started to cook my own food, that's when I decided to become a vegetarian. And it was Diet for a New America that really kind of changed my mind. So, but at the time, I never really saw myself as an activist type of person. And I had grown up, my father had run his own business, and so I had been very involved in the business since I was young. And so definitely had more of a business sensibility to me. So I went into advertising and ended up having a really interesting and fun career working on brands like Levi's and Taco Bell and Gap, several magazines, Parents Magazine and Kiplinger's Personal Finance, and then ended up in the digital space. During this whole time, I ate a vegetarian diet and I supported financially many of these animal groups, like PETA and others, but it never occurred to me that I could actually make a career out of this passion. I really just saw it as something very separate. And it really, it was only about a year ago that I was still in the digital advertising space, and I became involved with canvassing for the Yes on 3 campaign here in Massachusetts, which was a ballot initiative to basically give caged animals who were, grown for food in Massachusetts to give them a little bit more room to turn around. And at the time, it struck me as just horrifying that this type of initiative even had to be voted on, right? It seems so obvious. But I realized, I have to, do what I'm most passionate about. So I decided on the weekends to canvass, and obviously it overwhelmingly passed here in Massachusetts with a 70% vote. But it really started firing up in me, my feelings about animal rights, and it just made me kind of get back to the passion and the roots of my passion. And I read a book by Wayne Pastelli called The Humane Economy. And in that book, it opened my eyes to all these new sectors of business that I really didn't even know existed. So companies like Modern Meadow, making leather in a laboratory, or Impossible Foods, making this Impossible Burger, that bleeds like a normal burger. And a lot of other companies as well. And it really got me excited. And so I ended up volunteering for the Humane Society, helping them with their Forward Food website, and started to talk to a lot of people and did more research and came across GFI and came across my job of Director of Corporate Engagement. And literally when I read the job posting, I said out loud, "This is my dream job."
Very cool.
And I went for it. So, and here we are today. So yeah, I'm really psyched to be able to bring my background of, communication and sales and just more of a corporate bent to this industry, because I think it's something, which is really important. In my role, I'm dealing with corporations like Taco Bell, for example. So it's come full circle, which is pretty cool.
And I love it because I myself, I'm a nutty entrepreneur and all like that. And so I recognize also, business side of everything. And I like what you just said. I love the fact that what, GFI is doing now and all, because we are at that stage where that needs to happen, bringing in people with your skill set and all like that. So really, if you will, bring a systemized approach to these next changes. Before, as we all know, it was much, people, hearts in the right places, a lot of grassroots efforts and all like that. But now, it's I love it that is now mixed with organizations like what you're doing. So it's like, look, like you said, it's come full circle. You're like, look, I've got my connections. I've got my skill set. I know how it works, and doing it for other reasons, for like you said, Taco Bell, company, Levi's, stuff like that. And now you're like, you know what? I get to take that skill set and now help promote this and grow this as a passion. And I love it. And like you said, I think that, some of those things at the time has come.
Absolutely. I think we all realize changing consumer behavior is really difficult. So a lot of these grassroots efforts, to get people to eat more vegan and vegetarian are phenomenal. And, I know that they've had success. But, I think the bigger opportunity, and this is why GFI exists, is to really focus on the business side of this. So, GFI is very much focused on the supply side. So our role in this whole sector is to really support all the companies that are making these products and to help them make products that are competitive on a taste, price, and convenience perspective with the animal counterpart products so that more consumers want to eat them for just the fact that they taste good and they're priced right and they're as convenient as the other animal products that they may have been eating. So that's what's exciting to me, is really working with some of these big companies from major restaurants and grocery stores, as well as meat companies, like traditional meat companies, to really show them that this is a business opportunity. We can put ethics on the table, and we can really focus on the fact that this is, something that is a major opportunity for all of these companies. There is a consumer dietary shift that is happening, and it's probably more towards the flexitarian diet rather than a vegan or vegetarian diet. But in the end, if these companies don't offer products, that to make them available to these consumers who are looking for them, then they're going to lose market share.
Yeah. I've been amazed at the companies we keep seeing that are buying up or buying major stakes.
Yeah.
In these companies. I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, wow. I said, it's almost like plant-based vegan space is almost becoming, and clean meat is becoming almost like the next .com.
Absolutely.
Because I forgot, and now, and hoping that maybe you can help me out. Maybe you remember. I'm trying to remember. It was just this week. But I forgot who it was.
So Maple Leaf Foods, which is one of Canada's largest meat companies, has about 2 years ago, they decided to publicly announce that they are transforming themselves from a large meat company to a large protein company. So their goal now is actually to be the largest and most sustainable protein company in the world. So they started off by buying Light Life back in February for, I think, it was $140 million, and they just bought Field Roast for about $120 million last week. So yeah, it's exciting, and they're on their way. And we will see more meat companies start to transition themselves into protein companies.
Yeah. And that's if you will, proverbial shot in the arm that all this needs. Like you said, your component of what y'all are doing about just bringing to the people, the boots on the ground, kind of the people with ideas, and saying, look, let us help you bring this to market. Let us show you how to bring it to market. So just educate you. I love that, because a lot of them are like, look, we got a dream and an idea. However, we also know we need a vehicle to get there, and so I love seeing that. Plus, like you said, these bigger companies now that are buying these smaller ones, obviously it's business. They have the ability for more exposure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is. Well, tell us then, all right, so kind of in keeping with that, what are you seeing coming up? Maybe, in the next year you're predicting, kind of maybe even some goals that you've set for who you want to get in touch with and all. What is, for Good Foods Institute, here we are at the end of, 2017 here, kind of maybe some initial goals you've set or anything for 2018.
Yeah. Well, so within my own department of corporate engagement, our goal is to have productive conversations with the top 100 restaurant chains. We've had several already, but it's really to get the conversation going in that industry of what can they be doing to try to meet the needs of these consumers? So how do they actually put plant-based foods on their menus? And, for each restaurant, it's going to be something different. It might be a Whole Foods quinoa power bowl for one restaurant, and it might be an Impossible Burger for another one. It might be a tofu stir fry yet for a different one. So it's really working collaboratively with them to help them navigate that path. Our other big initiative will be to work with grocery stores. So a lot of the issues that I was mentioning before about taste, price, and convenience, the price and convenience part play into the grocery store sector. So, how do we get some of these products to be priced more competitively compared to their animal meat counterpart products? And more importantly, how to make them more convenient. A lot of these companies aren't necessarily just targeting vegans and vegetarians. They're trying to go after mainstream consumers who are trying to eat more plant-based, whether it's for their health or animal welfare or sustainability, or maybe even just the taste of the products. But currently, a lot of those products are found in places in the grocery store where they wouldn't normally go. So they might be in the organic, all-natural section, or they might be in a frozen food section, in a different weird place in the grocery store. So, we've seen that when some of these products, like the Beyond Burger, gets placed into the meat counter of a grocery store like Kroger or Safeway, that the sales go up. Supposedly in one case, they went up by 600% when they moved them from the frozen food section to the meat counter. And, we know anecdotally that Hampton Creek, when they moved their Just Mayo product from the all-natural section, right alongside Hellmann's mayonnaise, it allowed them to really, start being a competitor going head-to-head with brands like that. So that's our dream, is to have a lot of these products compete with the mainstream products so that consumers can really have a choice. They can look, at a Gardein chicken strip right next to a real chicken strip and ask themselves which one they would prefer for dinner that night.
Mm-hmm. I love it. You're right, because, and a lot of people, it's that psychological trigger. They come in and there's, quote, burgers, but they're over there in between carrots and celery in that section. That, it's almost like that psychological, that doesn't belong to me.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't,
Sure.
And so you're right when it gets shifted over. Well, I want to ask you something too. Going back, when we talk about restaurants, some of the bigger chains and getting them to expand and get new things on their menus, I'm just curious, how is supply chain right now? And what I'm kind of meaning is, for instance, if you go and talk to someone about wanting to bring, different, like a Beyond Meat burger or something like that in there, Beyond Meat burger, has that been picked up with some big, large food service companies, or is that something maybe you assist with that maybe, all right, we all try this, we've got avenues and leverage to help you get it in? I'm just curious, even on that side, are there any difficulties for you once you get them to say yes, getting it in there?
Right. No, that's a really good question, and that is definitely an issue. And it's something that we at GFI are trying to really understand more is, how does the whole distribution system work? How can we assist manufacturers, especially some of the smaller ones, really get on the radar? One of the issues is with distribution is that typically a supplier needs to, supply like a truckload of product in order to get picked up. So if there's not the demand for a truckload of products from some of these restaurants, then they won't be on the list of items. But there are other ways to get around that. There are companies like Dot Foods, which is called a redistributor, whereby they'll work with smaller amounts of product and package, many different products together to make a full truckload. So that's one way to get around it. I know that with companies like Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat, really the issue there is actually just being able to supply enough product. Their demand has been so big that they're not able to supply as much, but they'll grow. Impossible Foods right now is making 1 million pounds of their product per month since their new factory opened. So, we'll start to see their product on more and more menus across the country. So, but, part of what we're hoping to do in engaging with these top 100 restaurants and then others as well is to make them aware of all these products. So we've actually created a database of, I think it now has over 300 products of plant-based dairy, seafood, egg, meat, cheese, basically any kind of substitute product that exists and is available to food service. So when we go and speak with, certain restaurants, say it's a restaurant that makes sub sandwiches, we're able to, tell them about the different options. There are these deli slices made by Field Roast or Tofurkey or whoever the company is, and here's the contact person, so that they're able to understand that these products already exist. They don't need to go to their R&D department and, start from scratch. These are products that they can start integrating right away. And in some cases, a lot of these companies are open to making specific formulations for some of these larger restaurant chains. So, if they want to have a real specific, unique product that has their own spice profile, they're willing to do that for them.
Nice. And as you and I know, in world and in life in general, like you said, giving them all that information, making decisions easier.
Absolutely.
How we get closer to substance.
Yep.
That's what I always tell people, because people start telling me, when I transitioned in my life to plant-based vegan, it's been about 7 years now. In the beginning, people would hear it, and I tell people, look, I grew up, a meathead wrestler. I'm kind of like that last guy, most people would say. and I wear that with a badge of honor, and that it gives me a platform to talk to people and tell people about it. And in the beginning, the comments be like, what? No way. So where now it's transitioned where people go, well, that sounds hard. Mm-hmm. When I hear that, that's a whole different, paradigm. To where now people are saying, well, tell me how, show me how, make it easier. So kind of go off like you said, when you're talking to these restaurants and all that. Yeah. I mean, whenever we can make things easier for people, they're like, all right, that's an easy decision. We'll give it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we're definitely we're seeing a lot of movement on the retail front at GFI, along with the Plant-Based Foods Association, PBFA. We did a custom Nielsen poll. So Nielsen obviously being the major market research company, that looks at basically sales from all of the major grocery stores, including Whole Foods. Uh-huh. And, we were able to define the plant-based sector. And so now we have a baseline. So that data was first polled this past August. And, year over year, there was an 8% increase in the whole plant-based foods sector, with some of the individual categories, having higher growth than others. But we expect that number to really start jumping in the months and years ahead. So on retail, they're already embracing and seeing growth in plant-based foods. So we do see a huge opportunity, though, on the food service side. They have definitely been slower to adopt a lot of these foods and trends. But you see some of the plant-based chains like, Veggie Grill and others like that. I mean, they're having phenomenal success. Pret a Manger, when they started launching more vegetarian and vegan products, they've had double-digit sales increases. We know that a lot of the restaurants that are carrying products like the Impossible Burger, again, are seeing double-digit sales increases. So, the more that restaurants start to embrace these foods and carry more of them, we believe that there's going to be a lot of success in the form of sales.
Well, speaking of restaurants, all right, you shared with me something very cool, the restaurant report card.
Yes.
And can you tell the listeners more about that? Because I thought that was very cool. And even so, some of the numbers even some of them I read through it actually surprised me. So I'd love for you to tell the listeners a little bit about that and how, the parameters and everything.
Sure. Yeah, so we came up with a rubric, so basically a way to score restaurants on, how successful they've been in carrying plant-based foods. And what we did is we focused on just entrees. Again, our goal here is not to make it easier for vegans and vegetarians to find something to eat. Vegans and vegetarians already know where to go for the most part, and they know how to combine things on a menu or leave things off. So really it's focused on, the other 90% of the country. So how do we get more of those people to eat more plant-based foods? So that's why we focused on entrees. And we looked at things like, does a restaurant have a single 100% plant-based entree? And we did focus on 100% plant-based. I think if you start to look at entrees where you maybe have to remove an ingredient or two, that becomes a slippery slope. Like at what point, do you just say, okay, that's not plant-based if you have to remove a hamburger patty and a piece of cheese. So it has to be 100% plant-based, no animal ingredients. And then the other thing we looked at is, besides, they would get extra points if they had more than one, but it's how they market them. And this is really important. So, if a restaurant does have a, plant-based burger, are they putting it into a separate vegan, vegetarian, meatless, or meat-free section? If not, we actually gave them extra points. And the reason for that is that research shows that consumers are ordering more of these products if they're not segregated into a separate section. And part of it, I think, is just personal identification. If I am a flexitarian or even a carnivore, I'm probably not going to look at the vegan or vegetarian section because that's not how I identify. But if I see it, the plant-based burger right next to the all-beef patty, I might actually say, you know what, I actually feel like having something a little bit lighter today, or maybe something healthier for me. And so I'll choose that. We also look at the naming of the products. We looked at a couple different things. One is the use of the word protein. So we do know that in America, people are eating too much protein, right? So the average average human, really only needs about 55 grams of protein per day. And yet in the U.S., we're eating over 120 grams on average per day. But that's not a conversation we're going to take on right now. That's kind of a bigger issue. So let's give consumers what they want, which is protein. Well, we know, you and I know, that all these plant-based foods do have protein in them. Some have more than others. So our assumption is that consumers are probably more likely to order plant-based foods if they know it has protein in it. So if a restaurant describes a plant-based entree as having protein, then we give them an extra point. If back to the earlier discussion of whether they're putting them into a separate part of the menu, we also gave them points if they didn't call it a vegan burger or a vegetarian burger, because, for the same reasons mentioned before. So, and if a restaurant embraces some kind of a meatless or meat-free day, like Meatless Monday campaign, for example, then we gave them extra points. So it was a pretty simple 10-point scale. We wanted to make it as attainable as possible and also as black and white as possible so that there's no subjectivity. And we assigned points, and it was, over 60, I think it was 67 of them had a 0 score. So, it just shows that there's just so much opportunity. So that's why, we're now in the process of speaking with some of these companies and really starting to share with them all the data that we have on this shift that is happening, the reasons for why it's happening. And more importantly, how our ideas for how they can make some of these changes. Now, we're not chefs and we don't claim to, know their business, but we want to be able to provide them with as much assistance as possible. And that's where that plant-based database comes into play here. So we'll have a list of all the different kinds of ingredients that they could swap out. And we're also actually coming up with a database. I think we have about 200 examples right now of other restaurants, not necessarily in the top 100, but restaurants around the country, all different kinds, from fast food to fine dining, that do have innovative plant-based entrees on their menu. And we point out, we actually have the link to the menu. We have the ingredients in the dish, as well as the restaurant location. And that's really just to give, chefs at some of these restaurants ideas as to what other people are doing. It doesn't just have to be a veggie burger. There are a lot of other real creative ways that restaurants can come up with protein-rich plant-based foods.
Well, I thought the report was cool. I really enjoyed looking at it, and I loved that. One of my favorite places, I eat it multiple times a week, was number 1, Chipotle.
Yes.
I love me some Chipotle.
Oh, that sofritas is so good, isn't it?
Oh, I love that. And I'll tell you, what was kind of neat to me, that I liked this one. I got to admit, it shocked me, but I love it for the listeners to know, because especially a lot of us, we travel on the road, Sheets.
I know.
Those convenience store Sheets, they were at the number 4 spot.
Yeah, Sheets and Wawa. Both of those stores are real creative. Sheets. And I think, one of the things that lends itself well to plant-based foods is that whole build your own type of model, right? So with Chipotle, you choose all your ingredients. And that's what Sheets is too. It's a kind of build your own. And I think a lot of the companies like Sheets and even Panera that are moving more towards digital ordering. So whether you're doing it on an app, or even in store at a kiosk, it allows for more individualization. It also allows them to, through choice architecture, put some of the plant-based products towards the top. So it kind of makes that the natural step. And that's really our goal, is to really convince restaurants to make the plant-based entree the default. So where the consumer, if they're going to add, chicken or beef or even cheese, that should be the add-on, and potentially it should even be more expensive to do so. So they have to, they're going to get charged an extra 50 cents or $1 in order to do that. But that the default is the healthiest option and the best one for the planet and for animals, which is the plant-based option.
Well, with this and kind of these reports and what we've been talking about, I'm going to ask you something, because one thing, and like you and I talked about a few minutes ago, I mean, these companies, in the business world, all right, it's becoming bigger and bigger. And as you and I know, especially when things get bigger and bigger in the business world, we usually hear a lot of chatter, especially, if you will, in political arenas. It's still wild to me. I don't still hear a lot of government chatter and talk about plant-based movement and all like that, and I'm sure there's a whole lot of rabbit holes we could go down. I'm just curious on what you see, or maybe even some of your thoughts on that, just, not hearing more.
Sure. Yeah, I think you'll probably start to hear more. We actually have a policy department at GFI. So we have a policy director and a few lobbyists, and they're in the D.C. area, not surprisingly. And, their role is to really make sure that the regulatory path is as smooth as possible for plant-based and clean meat companies. So, on the plant-based side, it's really trying to get an even playing field with plant-based products as with the animal counterpart products. So, it's hard to compete with some of these commodity industries, that have checkoff programs and that have very deep pockets in Congress and whatnot. So it's something, that we're trying to work towards. But a lot of it's also just being able to have a fair playing field as far as being able to use the terms milk and cheese and yogurt. So right now the dairy industry, is trying to fight a lot of these companies, and they're trying to get the FDA to not allow some of these plant-based companies to use those terms. And that's something that our policy department is working towards. So, and then clean meat is a whole other thing. We didn't talk that much about it. It's a technology, that a lot of companies like Memphis Meats and Mosa Meats and Hampton Creek are working towards, and will hopefully be commercially viable in the next 5+ years. But, a lot of questions around that are, who's the governing body for this new type of food? Will it be the FDA? Will it be the USDA? Will it be some kind of new entity? So that, again, is something that GFI is working very hard on, is trying to make sure that is figured out well before these products actually come to market, so that it doesn't actually hold up the ability to sell them and to have consumers try them. So, but yeah, I think, we'll start to hear probably more about this via the government as, more of these companies achieve success and, really start to contribute to the economic landscape. So, the more these companies succeed, the more jobs they'll create. So we see it as only beneficial.
Well, very nice. All right. Well, look, I got to ask you now one more. Let me ask you to kind of wrap this up. What is your go-to food? We've talked a lot about business and everything else. What, just for people listening, or what are some of your dishes? What do you like?
Well, so it's honestly, it was probably the best part of my job is actually trying all these products with all the companies we work with. So, we have relationships with all of the major and a lot of the smaller plant-based manufacturers. And it's just such a joy for me to, be able to try them all. So to have the Impossible Burger and to try all of Field Roast products and Light Life and Tofurkey, and I use a lot of them. I also am a fan of tofu and tempeh. So I'll eat it all. The great thing is, GFI has a retreat with all of our staff every 6 months, and it's all vegan all the time, and I easily come home 5 pounds heavier each time because the plethora of great food.
Oh, see, now you got me hungry. I mean,
I know.
You listed all those. Plus, you had to say tempeh. That's one of my favorite things I do as well. Sometimes I would go to Chipotle to shake it up. I'll go to Chipotle to get their brown rice black beans.
Oh, yum.
And then I come home and, grill up myself some tempeh and throw it on there.
That sounds like really good.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on, for your time, and for sharing a whole lot of information and all the things you and the Good Foods Institute is doing to help us all.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for getting the word out there. And I enjoyed our talk today. So thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Alison. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
All right, Alison, thank you so much again for coming on. Thank you for sharing your journey and talking about all the great things that the Good Foods Institute is doing to help continue to create just that marketplace. And make sure that these products are getting out there, and that these companies, some of them startups or at different levels, if you will, in the growth cycle of a company, are getting what they need and the support. And that's what Good Foods Institute is bringing to the place. And as a business person myself, I mean, I love what Good Foods Institute is doing. I mean, I love it because, of course, the side of, I'm passionate about the plant-based vegan, but I also love that it's just, an incredibly smart, business niche, if you will, that you're serving. And so, again, kudos to everyone over at Good Foods Institute. Thank you so much for all that you'll do. Love hearing about the report card that you're putting out there to the restaurants, because now it's obviously great for consumers like ourselves, that we get to find out neat things. Like I said, it blew me away. I mean, Chipotle didn't surprise me. I love Chipotle, go there all the time. But then Sheetz. I mean, the Sheetz gas stations, that is so cool. That, here, that is, as we're all traveling as we do, holiday season, stuff like that, we're traveling down the road and we see things like these stores and know that we can go in and get plant-based vegan options even on the go like that. That is so cool. I love that. And then, I love hearing too, or also what your report card is doing. Like you said, chefs can see it, and restaurant owners and all, and they can feed off of that and get ideas. They see, hey, what are these other places doing? Oh, wow, they're using that and that and that. Kind of like, Alison pointed out, instead of just like, maybe a garden, bean patty, it points out other things that these restaurants are doing and being successful with. Because, again, look, everyone, the secret's out. 2017 blew the doors off with the, quote, secret of what's going on with plant-based vegan. I think we all can agree 2018 is going to be phenomenal, and there's going to be so much growth because it is out there now. I mean, we keep seeing, as we've all talked about, and I've written blog posts about it and all, talked about it in previous shows. I mean, these companies that are buying in, like these major corporations that are now either buying up, like Alison and I talked about, or heavily investing in these plant-based vegan companies. It is awesome. And it's a sign. It's a sign that they see that's where the future is heading. And then I love, hearing about stuff that even now, like the grocery store chains, because look, number one, what are they at the end of the day? Look, they are their profit driven. They want to do what they can to put their company in the best possible position to make a profit. And so they're even realizing, what? Let's integrate these foods over, with their, quote, meat counterparts. All right. Like she was saying that, when things went from the frozen food to the meat counter, 600% growth in sales. Look, you want to get someone's attention real fast in the corporate world. Tell them you got an idea that'll increase sales 600%. I promise you, you will get their full undivided attention. So those of you listening, you never know. I mean, if maybe your favorite grocery store you shop at, and if you see some of the same things like Alison was bringing up, you might see that, they've got like this section that we talked about that a lot of times that's over in, if you will, kind of just the fruits and vegetable areas. A lot of times where they may put the tempeh or, burgers and stuff like that. Talk to them. Say, hey, try this out. Try just shifting the advertising a little bit. Again, if maybe the management, you go in there a lot and all like that, hey, you never know. Just mention it to them, tell them the success it's had in other areas because, it may be something they're willing to do. And then, hey, there you are. You're a proponent of change yourself. Listen, everybody, thank you so much again for a phenomenal 2017. I have a blast. I have a blast doing this. I have a blast with the emails, Facebook interaction I get from you. As all of you know, everything is Vegan Tour Guide. Facebook.com/Vegan Tour Guide, Twitter.com/Vegan Tour Guide, Instagram.com/Vegan Tour Guide. You get it at vegantourguide@gmail.com to reach me. Love hearing from you. Love the ideas, feedback. I've had people sharing recipes, speakers they want to have on. Bring it. I love hearing it. I hope all of you have an incredible, great last few days of 2017. Have a phenomenal start to your 2018. And until next time, everybody, live Pura Vida.